So I'm Jane Oakes, and I'm a local historian, and I've been working on research for a number of years about Dr. Harriet Newell Austin, who was one of the water cure physicians up at the Cure on the Hill. And my research for her led me to a couple of interesting places, which I'll cover in a minute. But one of the things that I'm struck by is this connection between the Angel of the Waters, Emma Stebbins, and water cures in general. They sought to give people pure, clean water as part of a treatment for your health. And of course, Emma, as mentioned in the little newsreel, Emma had lost a family member to water that was polluted. And this was an endemic problem in cities. Our home on the hillside in Dansville, summer of 1881 was the year that Emma Stebbins came here to be healed. She had problems with her lungs because of years and years of breathing stone dust for her sculptures. Unfortunately, she died the following year. And why water cures? Well, Charlotte Cushman was very much in favor of water cures. She had visited the Malvern water cure. She had visited other European water cures. And so when Emma was by herself after Charlotte's death, I think it's pretty natural that she came to the preeminent water cure in the country, which was up there. In Emma's book, Emma's biography about Charlotte, she said that she had put herself under a course of water treatment, which she thought was helping her. And under this date, she said, I am satisfied that the treatment is doing me good, not perhaps by any evidence in my special malady, she had breast cancer, but in my general condition. I am feeling generally much better. I am certainly going through my work wonderfully. My spirits are better, and I can do more. I am sure it is the treatment. I am so settled in my faith in this that I think I will consent to the engagement offered me at Booth's Theater for October. Now, she was in New York City at the time that was written in her diary. She may have been at Dr. Russell Trowell's water cure on Lake Street in New York. Trowell was one of the founders of the water cure movement in America, and he even was a guest of James Caleb Jackson up here on the Hill when they did a massive New York State Health Convention here in Canasarega Hall, which is third story up above Hammerheads. Trowell's method of water cure involved rest, baths, cold packs, massage, exercise, good nutrition, and inspirational talks. Some of these images are taken from his book, The Hydropathic Encyclopedia, written in 1854. The wet pack on the left. You would be wrapped in a wet sheet and then bundled up in blankets and quilts and left to rest for an hour or so. Your body would gradually heat up and give almost like a steam bath inside there. After which you would get another bath. You would be rubbed down very briskly to get your circulation going and your skin clean. And if you were at home and wanted to follow water cure methods, my favorite image is the gentleman taking a sitting bath and reading a book at the same time. I've been known to read in the tub as well. But it's a lovely book. And these were methods that were also practiced up on the hill here in Dansville. Dr. James Caleb Jackson, in 1858, the fall, came with his entourage and took over a water cure building, previously called the Model Water Cure, built about 1853. It was deserted at the time. There was wildlife living in it, but they cleaned it up and brought some of their patients from the Glen Haven Water Cure down on Skaneateles Lake, where James Caleb Jackson had a water cure previously. And the place grew. More and more people came. There were profits being made, enough to expand. You can see the difference between that central building, which was the original, and all the additions. This is probably mid to late 1860s from a stereopticon card that I have in my collection. And by the 1870s, we can see there's even more growth. The building on the right, that is Liberty Hall, and we'll see the interior of that in just a moment. So why were people coming to Dansville? Well, James Caleb Jackson's reputation. He was a water cure physician. He was a prominent abolitionist and temperance promoter. He had a wide group of friends in all walks of life and all sorts of politics. They came for the nutrition, they came for healing, they came for the social interactions. Nutrition, well, Jackson, like Trowell, promoted a mostly vegetarian diet, although Trowell later in life went completely vegan, even advocating using nut milk instead of dairy milk. Granula was developed at Glen Haven, but perfected and marketed here at Dansville. And if you go to the Dansville Historical Society, you can see the tin and also a shipping box for granula. And the cure up on the hill was beautiful. There were beautiful walks, like the Boulderwood Walk. There were charming little cottages if you did not want to stay at the cure, or if you and your family were going to stay for a little bit longer period, you might want to take one of the cottages. And there was Liberty Hall. This is where plays, musicales, concerts, lectures, inspirational talks, and religious services were conducted. And oh my goodness, some of the people who you could see at Liberty Hall, well, in 1881, the Dansville Express noted that Miss Susan B. Anthony and her sister, Mary, are guests at our home. She lectured at Liberty Hall Tuesday afternoon. And the nice thing about Liberty Hall was they invited people from the community here in Dansville and the environs to go up and listen to these lectures. Frederick Douglass talked there. Composer-singer James G. Clark, very popular singer. In fact, he came to the Cure, stayed a while, and liked the area so much that he moved his family to Dansville for a number of years, and he went out on the concert circuit from Dansville. I wish I had a photograph of him. I keep looking. And then James and Ellen G. White. Now, Ellen's interesting. She was one of the founders of the Seventh-day Adventists, and she's the one who stole the granula recipe, took it to James Kellogg, or John Harvey Kellogg, out at Battle Creek, Michigan, who started marketing granula. There was a little bit of a lawsuit, and he ended up having to change the name to granola. Granola. If you want to eat granula today, go get some grape nuts. Honestly, that is the closest thing to this first breakfast cereal, first ready-to-eat breakfast cereal. A number of years ago, before Wells College closed, I was down there doing research into the Leffingwell collection because I knew that Dr. Leffingwell, who worked up at the Cure, in his diaries probably would have things to say about Dr. Harriet Newell Austin, of whom I am writing a biography. When I was going through the boxes, 12 boxes in all, filled with like 30 years worth of diaries, and papers and letters and pamphlets and all sorts of things, I came across in one of his diaries a beautiful little gem-sized tintype and a lock of hair. And this turned out to be Mary Leffingwell, his first wife. He loved her. He loved her deeply. And there are numerous references to Mary. she became a person of interest to me, especially since I looked in her diaries that he had kept and saw that July 22nd, 1881, she went on several errands to the Cure for Miss A, that's Harriet Newell Austin, then helped her on the Laws of Life, which was their newspaper that they produced, and then said, met Miss Stebbins, author of Life of Charlotte Cushman and sculptor. Well, I had heard of Emma Stebbins, and so this seemed very, very interesting to me, and I resolved to do a little bit more research into Mary Leffingwell. So Mary Comstock Hathaway Leffingwell was married to Dr. Albert Tracy Leffingwell. I've been fortunate enough to become friends with his granddaughter, Tracy Leffingwell, over in Aurora, and she's been most helpful. And the Aurora Village historian also has been of great help on this project. Mary was raised in a household that was a stop on the Underground Railroad. Her father and James Caleb Jackson were such close friends. They both had served on abolition committees. They both were at the Abolition Conference in Cazenovia in 1851. They were great friends. Frederick Douglass was a frequent visitor to the Hathaway House in Farmington. So Albert was the nephew of James Caleb Jackson, and so the cousin of James H. Jackson. Did you ever wonder why his middle name was James Hathaway Jackson, in honor of the Hathaway family? Albert and Mary, another thing I was very surprised and struck with a little bit of awe to find in the collection was their wedding certificate for December 23rd, 1871. They were married by Henry Ward Beecher at his house. This is another person who, open up your history books, you will find the Beechers. Yes, related to Harriet Beecher Stowe and Lyman Beecher. So as we go into Mary Leffingwell's diary, we get a really good snapshot of what was going on in the summer of 1881, right about this time of year. July 19th, she rose at 5 to help Miss Austin, and there is Harriet Newell Austin to the right. Took a walk up the hill as far as the railroad before breakfast. Afterwards, rode an hour with Mrs. Cowing, then listened to Clara Barton's pamphlet, called on Mrs. Leffingwell, took a Moliere bath, attended a lecture, dinner, croquet, 1.5-hour game with Mr. Jackson, looked over papers, visited Anne, and helped Miss Austin a little, and then to my room before 10. The day after, she commented on Clara Barton, how worthwhile it is to live with an idea and an aim. How I admire Miss Barton, too, in her effort to establish an association of the Red Cross in America. She spent 4 months in Washington getting a hearing of the administration and organizing her society and writing her pamphlet. The object of the society is to keep in readiness aid for the sick, wounded, etc., during war or any other great calamity. On the 13th of August, busy packing today because she was about to return to her winter job teaching at the Packer Institute in Brooklyn. And with Mrs. Johnson, helped Clara Barton to punctuate her almost faultless pamphlet on the Red Cross Association. August 14th, I met with Susan B. Anthony at Brightside, then to Miss Willard's temperance lecture in the Presbyterian Church. So here we have Clara Barton, Susan B. Anthony, Mary Anthony, Frances Willard, all at the Cure at the same time and walking the streets in Dansville. I mean, how marvelous must it have been for people here to pass these famous women by? Frances was the president for almost 20 years of the Women's Christian Temperance Union. and that August 14th lecture would lead to something kind of nice for Dansville. Now, there is bright side. She talks in her diary about coming down to breakfast one day, and there's Susan B. Anthony sitting at the breakfast table with the Jacksons and everyone else. And in her August 24th diary, and then later when writing to Albert, because he was out of country studying, on August 28th, she told of Selma Borg staying there, as well as Emma Stebbins and Susan B. Anthony. Now, she was a Finnish writer and translator. And we'll see a picture of her in a minute. Mary said, last night Selma Borg gave a wonderful talk on individuality. Such thought, such gestures, such expression is a marvel. And that would have happened in Liberty Hall. And then the letter to Albert says, as I have written you, there are more interesting people at the Cure than usual this summer. Miss Borg gave a wonderful talk on individuality. Susan B. Anthony gave a powerful women's rights lecture one day. Miss Ebba Stebbins, sculptor. Mrs. Tilton, whose husband is an artist. And even Clara Barton in her diary mentioned that Selma Borg had arrived. Clara's writing is sometimes a little hard to read, but in the yellow I've put Selma Borg to Cure, and then a couple other names, and then she noted Selma Borg of Finland. Now, in Albert's diary, Selma came back in 1885, but Albert noted, Selma Borg arrived later tonight, drunk. Twice that happened. So evidently she was coming to this cure to have a different sort of cure. Yeah, poor Selma. And she also wrote, today, Miss Willard, president of the National Women's Christian Temperance Union, gave a fluent, delightful talk on her experiences at the South. Was at dinner also, and very entertaining. Now, they had a big anniversary family dinner at the Highland House in Dansville. And she even noted what they had. Tomato soup, trout, poached salmon with egg sauce, mutton chops with little peas, turkey, blé de turcoifre, which I had to look that up, and that is a boiled wheat, Turkish style. So I'm almost thinking it would have been like a tabbouleh, just cracked boiled wheat. Rotisserie grilled chicken, creamed potatoes, apple pie, custard, peaches, pears, melons, champagne, and coffee. Now, we know Emma Willard would not have drunk the champagne, and there was some discussion about that at the dinner table. But other people had a little sip. And one thing you'll notice here is there's no pork to be seen on the menu. James Caleb Jackson was adamant that pork was an unclean animal to eat. Well, and this goes back to the old tradition, awful thing, that many times pork carried trichinosis. And you could get very sick and die if you had undercooked pork. And so he forbade pork in all forms at both of his water cures. Mutton, fish, poultry, once in a while beef. Did you know Frances was from Churchville? Frances Willard? Born in Churchville, 1839. Moved away very young, but we can still claim her as a Western New Yorker. And I'm going to read from the Dansville Express here because this is kind of fun. 18th of August, 1881. Last Sunday evening, Miss Frances Willard of Chicago, president of the Women's Christian Temperance Union, spoke in the Presbyterian Church to an audience comprised of members of the various congregations of the village. Her subject being the oft-repeated tale of intemperance and its consequent miseries. Flip the page, because I'm not going to read you all of it. It said that at the close of her address, Reverend Mr. Ward announced that a meeting would be held Monday afternoon in Whiteman's Hall to organize a temperance union for Dansville, after which a collection was taken up for the benefit of the local organization, and then the congregation was dismissed. And the meeting did go on, and about 60 ladies crowded into Whiteman's Hall. When Miss Willard had spoken, she said that Miss Susan B. Anthony, the first woman who ever called a temperance convention in this state, was present. And she thought the ladies would like to hear from her. Miss Anthony came forward and gave an amusing sketch, Woman in the State called to a temperance convention. She said that in a teachers' convention in Rochester in 1852, she was there, and she was a delegate as a daughter of temperance to a convention of Sons of Temperance in New York City. In 1848, when the ladies ventured to express their opinions in discussion, they were told that the daughters were not invited there to speak, but to listen. Thereupon, a number of the daughters' delegates determined to hold a convention of their own, and hence the call by Miss Anthony to call the first statewide women's temperance convention. This kind of sounds familiar. It ties right in with the Women's Rights Convention held in England that Elizabeth Cady Stanton was not allowed to speak at because woman. So here are portraits of Frances and Susan and a group of WCTU women in action. Think Carrie Nation. And where was Whiteman's Hall? Anybody know? Took me a while to figure it out, but I did, just in time. Now, this building was taken 20 years ago when I was photographing with a grant from the county historian's office all of the opera houses and halls in the county that I could get into. And I never got into this one. I'm hoping to today. Afterwards. So you're not seeing the nice paint job and reclamation that has been done by Lori Welch and her family. But where is Whiteman's Hall? Well, if we look in 1885, Whiteman's Hall will hereafter be known as Music Hall. It's a cozy place. And then, because this was where Dr. Francis M. Perrine had his Genesee Valley Wine Company offices and his own medical office, Dr. F.M. Perrine kindly tendered the use of Music Hall on Tuesday evening for the Grant Citizens Meeting. This hall has been handsomely fitted up by Mr. J.C. Hawes with stage curtains and its walls handsomely decorated. So that's where Whiteman's Hall was. Then Music Hall. Dansville had a lot of halls upstairs above the buildings. Disaster struck, and the glory of the original Our Home on the Hillside water cure was ended on June 26, 1882. These are images from the book Castles on the Hill by Ted Jackson. I think that's still available through the Historical Society.
It absolutely is.
Absolutely. You can get that book at the Historical Society, and it really is a lovely piece of work if you have not read it. Albert Leffingwell, his diary. He was coming back from Europe. He was in Brooklyn. He arrived at the wharf at about 5 p.m., but not at Brooklyn until 8:30. He had a boarding house room reserved on Cranberry Street. There found Mary with Mac and Emma. Bad news. The Dansville cure burned last night. No lives lost. June 28th, on the cars, Erie Railroad, after a busy day, took the train for Dansville. Arrived by carriage from Wayland about 11 o'clock. The rebound had come. Everyone full of enthusiasm, but a great pile of smoking ashes in the foreground. And here are images. The only thing that was saved from that building was Liberty Hall. And onward the company forged. The old guard, Dr. James Caleb Jackson and Harriet Newell Austin, basically retired, and they let the younger generation, the Leffingwells, Albert and his brothers Elisha and William, and other women doctors who had come forward with their own degrees. They let the new generation, with his son James H. Jackson and his wife Dr. Kate Jackson, take over. Things changed. No longer was it strictly a water cure. The term was beginning to be considered old-fashioned, and so they called it a sanitarium. And they did start allowing people to eat pork and have sweets, and things got a lot more lax there medically in one way, contrary to what James Hathaway Jackson's father had promoted. But this lovely, lovely letterhead from the Minor Library up at the U of R shows the building in process of erection, going to be occupied by August 1883. And it was completed. I'm not going to show what it is now because it's just too sad to look at. But I'm very grateful that you've had a chance to listen to all the things that were going on in 1881. I like to call it the Year of the Women at the Dansville, our home on the hillside. Really quite amazing to think of these icons from American history staying there, walking the streets, and talking to and with the people of Dansville. Thank you. And I just wanted to point out, this is a great example of the American costume, which was promoted by the Jacksons and Harriet Newell Austin. This comes from Susan Higginbotham, who is a collector of ancient images, antique images down south. And we're in contact through one of the message boards that we're both on regarding old photography. And she had this, which was taken in Dansville. So you can see someone who'd come from down south to come up to the facility in Dansville. Thank you.
CBS New York is celebrating Pride Month. There are landmarks all over the city with strong ties to the LGBTQ plus community. Jessica Moore explains one of them is right in the middle of Central Park.
It's estimated that more than 40 million people visit Central Park every year, with many stopping to take in the breathtaking Bethesda fountain. Among them, Maria Teresa Cometto.
Being a journalist, I became curious about who created the angel and the Bethesda fountain. Then I discovered it was a woman, and she was gay.
The artist was Emma Stebbins, born to a wealthy New York family in 1815. Her sculpture, Angel of the Waters, sits atop the iconic fountain, which was dedicated in 1873. Cometto was so taken with what she learned about this Central Park centerpiece, she wrote a book about the art and the artist.
She was the first woman to get a public art commission in New York City for this monument.
And she was a pioneer in other ways as well. She went to Rome to study sculpture and found a welcoming community of like-minded women.
Half of them, they were lesbians, and they were living with other women as companions in a very open way.
Stebbins fell in love with noted American actress Charlotte Cushman, and they lived as a dedicated couple for about 2 decades.
Charlotte was a muse for Emma.
Central Park Conservancy historian Jess McLean.
Clean water was an issue in early 19th century New York. This has a personal element for Emma. Her younger brother John died in 1837 as a result of cholera.
And while some have said there's an androgynous quality to the face of this angel, she is a woman.
To have a statue in the park that was sculpted by a woman, and a sculpture that represents the love and affection and partnership of Emma and Charlotte is a gift. It's a gift to New Yorkers. It's a gift to the LGBT community.
Jessica Moore, CBS News, New York.
So thank you so much for coming here, you all. I'm so happy to be here in Dansville, and I thank Nancy and the whole team at the Dansville Area Historical Society for inviting me. I was here. So first of all, congratulations to Jane. Great presentation. Where is Jane? Okay, hi. I'm pretty jealous. Okay, I'm standing. I'm not. You okay? Okay. I'm pretty jealous of Jane because she had so many sources to learn from, and I didn't know that all the other women were there in the summer '81, because when I did my research, it was very difficult because Emma Stebbins, the sculptor, didn't leave any letters, didn't leave any diary, and so the only sources were a few letters that survived, and the book that she wrote about her companion Charlotte Cushman, where she says something about their life together, and the letters by Charlotte Cushman to other people. But the reason is that Emma was a very private, very shy person, so she didn't want very much to talk about herself. During my research, I went to many different places to find information, and so I came here in 2021, December, to visit the museum, and Nancy was so nice to talk with me, but we couldn't find anything about Emma because, as Jane explained, in '82 the place burned down, and so all the maybe the list of the patients or guests were destroyed completely. Yes, but since then I've been in touch with Nancy, and that's why I'm here now. So this is The Angel of the Waters, the Bethesda Fountain, and my book is the first ever biography of the artist who created it. It is one of the most famous monument of New York City. It is in so many movies, shows, and it's pretty important for the history of art also, because Emma Stebbins was the first woman to get a public commission for a monument in New York City. Very few know that the angel, the Bethesda fountain, were created in Italy, in Rome, because Emma, like many other American sculptors, went to Rome in the second half of 19th century. And the first time that Emma Stebbins was mentioned in a movie or in a TV show was maybe better sit down, was in one episode of The Gilded Age. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this HBO show. And so in one episode, Tom, the guy on the left, wanted to impress his date, Marion, and in front of the statue, he asks her, "Do you know who created this statue?" And she says, "No." And so he said, the statue was the statue at the top was made by a woman, Emma Stebbins. Okay, Emma Stebbins was a New Yorker. She was born in 1815 in New York City from a very wealthy family. The father was a banker, two brothers were stockbrokers, and especially Henry, one of the brothers, was the president of the New York City Exchange, was also for a while a U.S. senator for the Democrats, works, and he was a patron of the art, one of the co-founders of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. He was also a commissioner of Central Park. And so some critics now, not at that time, say that she was given the commission for this statue because the brother was a commissioner. But I don't think it's true. First of all, at that time when she got the commission in 1863, she was already a very well-known sculptor, a very well-known artist. She had already a very important exhibition in New York with her first works. And she was acclaimed as one of the most important American sculptors at that time. This is her carte de visite. It is something that artists had to publicize their works, and it was shot in Rome in 1856 when she moved there from New York City. There were many reasons why she went there and why many other American sculptors went to Rome in the second half of 19th century. The first thing is that there were no schools in America for sculpting. And instead in Rome, of course, artists could go to the Vatican Museum, Musei Capitolini, Villa Borghese to study the masters, the Greek and Roman sculptures. Another reason was that the American marble at that time was not good enough for sculptures, and instead in Rome there was the marble from Carrara, the one used by Michelangelo and Canova and all the other great masters, and so the marble of Carrara was the best one for artists. Another reason was that in Rome there were many artisans, many carvers able to help the sculptures to finish their works, because very few people know that the sculptures didn't do all the work. They just did of course, the design, the model in clay, in plaster, but then transferring the idea and the model to the marble, the hard work was done by carvers, and the artists, including Canova, they were just finishing. They just gave the last touches. Not Emma Stebbins. Emma Stebbins did everything herself, and that's why after many years breathing the marble dust, she got the lung disease, and that's why she came, as Jane already said, to Dansville trying to heal their lungs. And finally also there was a commercial reason. It was easier for American sculpture to sell their works to Americans going to Rome, because wealthy Americans going to Rome, they wanted to bring back a souvenir, so a piece of art, and they knew mostly just the American artists, so they went to the studios and bought sculptures to bring back home and to enrich their salon. The very first sculpture that Emma did in Rome was the Lotus Eater. You see the drawing. Unfortunately, the whole statue is lost, but a bust survives. And Emma Stebbins was a pioneer in sculpting. She was the first American woman artist to portray a male naked body like this one. There is just some flowers and fruit covering the private parts, but for the rest he was naked, and that was pretty scandalous. It was very brave of hers, because even the female statues, the women female statues were scandalous for some puritanical critics. And the other very first statues that were at the exhibition in New York in 1861 were the miner and the sailor that you see here. And also here Emma Stebbins was a pioneer, because she was the first neoclassical American sculptor, both male and female, both men and women, to portray two workers. Usually the neoclassical artists would do statues with the classic Greek and Roman drapes, like the ancient used to do. And instead, when she got the commission from a wealthy merchant who made money with shipping and mining, when she got the commission for these two statues, she decided to portray two workers in their daily working outfit. And some critics said that she was, again, very brave to do that. And this is the bust of Charlotte Cushman. She was a very famous Shakespearean actress, very famous both in America and in England. She was famous and she was special because she was able to play both male and female roles. So she was able to be a Romeo on stage and the Lady Macbeth. And she was very, very popular, very rich, and that's why she bought a house in Rome where she would spend the winter and the spring. And it is in Rome that Emma met Charlotte, because Charlotte, being an actress, was, she had a salon. She invited all her artist friends from that were living in Rome at that time. They met immediately, and they immediately started living together. And in fact, in a letter to a friend, just 2 years after they met, Charlotte wrote, "Do you not know that I am already married and wear the badge upon the third finger of my left hand?" So they considered themselves like a couple, a married couple, and that's amazing. More than 100 years before equal marriage became a law here in America. Okay. This is an old picture of the Bethesda fountain that was inaugurated in 1873 in Central Park. It is the only monument in Central Park that was commissioned and paid by Central Park, while all the other statues were proposed by private citizens or private associations of citizens, and when accepted by Central Park, they were financed and paid by them. Instead, this was, as I said, the only monument commissioned, and had a very important task. It had to celebrate the arrival of the first aqueduct to New York City. And the first aqueduct from Croton, the Croton Reservoir, arrived only in 1842. And before that, as Jane mentioned, people would die of cholera, especially of cholera. Thousands of New Yorkers died in the first half of the 19th century because they drank polluted water that they would get from wells. But because Manhattan was full of factories polluting the water, so people got sick. And also, one of the brothers, and maybe also the father, died of cholera in the 1830s, around that time. So the fountain was commissioned to celebrate the pure water, and also Vax, one of the two architects of Central Park, wanted to put it exactly in the heart of Central Park, with the meaning of love between humans, between men and women, and nature. And because Central Park, the main reason of Central Park was to give this big area to breathe pure air also to workers, to all the workers of the factories. So the only thing that Emma knew was to celebrate the arrival of pure water and to celebrate love. And let's see here. So it was Emma Stebbins who decided to put an angel on top of the fountain. This is one of her drawings, one of the few things that her sister was able to keep in a scrapbook. And when the statue was inaugurated in 1973, Emma explained the meaning of the angel, and I'm reading from the program of the inauguration. Sorry, just a second. Okay. In the program, she explains that the reference of the angel is to a passage of John's Gospel, quote, "A great number of disabled people, the blind, the lame, the paralyzed, used to lie around the pool, the Bethesda pool in Jerusalem. From time to time, an angel of the Lord would come down and stir up the waters. The first one into the pool, after each such disturbance, would be cured of whatever disease he had." That is in the Gospel by John. And in the program, Emma explains, quote, "We have no less healing, comfort, and purification freely sent to us through the blessed gift of pure and wholesome water, which to all the countless homes of this great city comes like an angel visitant, not at stated seasons only, but day by day." Okay, sorry, went back. One striking thing, one thing that struck me, but not only me, also the critics at that time, is that this angel is not a male angel, not a female angel, but she explained in the program that she is a woman angel, which is quite strange, at least for Catholics, because Catholics in Rome, they thought of angels like warriors. I don't know if you have in mind images, of Archangelo Gabriele or other angels fighting against the snake or dragons or stuff like that. This instead is a very gentle kind of angel, and so in the program, Emma writes, "Every day an angel descends for us, and to remind us of this, the golden bronze angel of the fountain stands forever blessing the waters which rise and move at her presence. She bears in her left hand a bunch of lilies, emblems of purity, and wears across her breast the crossed bands of the messenger angel." So she was definitely a woman for her, which is quite intriguing. The most important newspapers at that time in New York City, the New York Evening Post and the New York Herald, loved the statue, loved the fountain. One wrote, the more we are impressed with by the profound, the more we look at it, the more we are impressed with the profound significance of the design. And another critic said, praised the angel and pointed out that Miss Stebbins' genius and reputation were such that the director of the Munich foundry, where the bronze statue was made, the director of the Munich foundry had taken the trouble and incurred the considerable expenses at conducting a test of the fountain's operation himself here in New York City, something that had never happened before. Instead, the New York Times, that at that time was not the most important daily newspaper in New York, was really disappointed. They said, the face of this angel looks like a male face, but then the angel has breast and button also, and it's quite scandalous because you see the skirt leaves, you can see the legs, right? And so he said, this is a horrible mosaic, and really we don't like it. Charlotte, who was a kind of a manager of Emma while they were together. Charlotte noted that in the end, the New York Times said, bronze statues made in Pittsburgh, where there were foundries, are much better. So it was like, a lobbying from the American foundries against the Munich, the German one. Emma was also the creator of other two big important public monuments. One is Horseman, that is in front of the Capitol in Boston. And the other one is Christopher Columbus, that is in Brooklyn, in front of the New York State Supreme Court. So she was so famous and so well considered that she got commissions also for these big monuments, not only in New York City. This is a marble medallion portraying Emma, made by another of the American women sculptors that worked and lived in Rome in the second half of 19th century, Margaret Foley. Okay. Charlotte Cushman died in 1876, and one reason why Emma Stebbins was forgotten during the last years of her life, and then also later, is that when Charlotte discovered she had breast cancer, Emma stopped working as an artist, and they left Rome and they came to America trying to find a cure for the cancer, in vain. And so Emma first took care of Charlotte, and then when Charlotte died, she spent several years writing the biography of Charlotte Cushman. And so when she died in 82, there was not even an obituary about Emma Stebbins on the papers, on the Herald, the Tribune, or New York Times, and so on. Because she was so private and so shy, also finding her grave was a very difficult task. She has her grave in Brooklyn at the Greenwood Cemetery, which is a beautiful historical cemetery where the wealthy New Yorkers would go to rest in peace. And so it is a very small tombstone, and there was just the name of Emma Stebbins, no mention that she was an artist. Her sister Mary just made this writing: Emma Stebbins, my beloved sister and faithful friend. But under at the end of the grave, you can read another quote from the Bible, from a letter by St. Paul to the Romans, and it's just love is the fulfillment of the law. St. Paul had written to the Romans, love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no wrong to its neighbors. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law. That was, all the laws, all the God laws could be resumed just in this. Before finishing, I can read part of a letter that Emma sent to her friend and colleague Anne Whitney on July 19, 1881. So it is exactly the same dates of the diary that you mentioned before. So Emma wrote this letter from Dansville while she was here. And she wrote, I am here at this sanitarium, Casa di Cura, the supposed headquarters of health for body and soul. Yes, soul as well, because the old doctor who presides over it and has built it up calls his treatment psycho-hygienic. For one thing, it is beautiful. The air is delicious, the water so pure. They call it, quote, all healing, unquote. A life in the open air is the rule. You may perhaps come here and be stretched on a cot in the shadow of trees, with a wide view of hills and dales and orchards, or seated in hammocks stretched from tree to tree, or wandering along the innumerable wood paths, dressed as you would like to be, in a bloomer and your short hair under a hat, to restore the balance of your overtaxed brain, or eating only one meal a day, or two, or listening to lectures on the laws of life, or giving your experiences at prayer meetings, etc., etc. But then she ended the letter in a very pessimistic way. But enough. As for sure, my natural depravity is such that all this has not helped me. And in fact, she would die just 1 year later. This was 81, and she died in 82. Well, my last image is, myself in front of the Escher Museum. I'm very happy that I think that my book helped raise again awareness about this great artist. And one of the places where I went to do my research was the Escher Museum, where the miner and the sailor were there already in 2021. I went there trying to find some documents about the two statues. They didn't have any. But now, this September, on September 28th, they will open the first exhibition all about Emma Stebbins and her works. So I'm very, very happy that my book, I think, helped to get this exhibition that will be on until March next year. So you have time to do a trip, to do maybe a weekend there. Huntington is a very beautiful village on the ocean. The museum is great. And they will have a catalog and my book also sold at the museum. So I'm very happy to finish with this very good news about Emma Stebbins. And I hope that you are going to ask me and also Jane questions now. Being a journalist, I was curious and I started thinking who made this. If you go there, there is only a very small sign on one wall of the terrace mentioning Emma Stebbins, but not with a great emphasis. And so I discovered that there was no biography. In the biographies of Charlotte Cushman, there was very little about her. And but the more I did research, the more I thought it was an extraordinary life, and it was so connected with many other things going on in America and in Rome at that time. As Nancy remarked last night, Emma and Charlotte, they were very active in many different ways. For example, they both did a tour in America to raise money for the Union Army during the Civil War. And of course, Charlotte did her reading, but also Emma was reading poetry. So they did that. While in Italy, they were supporting the Risorgimento, the movement by Italians to get rid of the foreigners who were occupying Italy. The Austrian Empire in the northeast, the Borboni, the Spaniard in the south, the French in Rome with the Pope. So they were giving money to the Italian patriots against this foreigner occupation. As I said, they were active for women's rights. And so I thought it was really an extraordinary life. And she left this monument that are so famous and everybody loves. And it's a pity that nobody knows who she was.
Maria, were you able to find much about Emma Stebbins in Italian newspapers?
Nothing, unfortunately nothing, because I went to Rome and I went to many archives. The problem is that until 1870, so until Emma lived and worked in Rome, the only newspaper published in Rome was by the popes, by the Vatican. And the Vatican, the Pope couldn't care less about American artists working in Rome. Oh, great.
Oh, thank you.
So, unfortunately, there was no papers mentioned. I found only a guide of businesses. I don't remember exactly what year it was. So it was a guide of all businesses in Rome at that time. And one section was about artists and about sculptures, and there was Emma Stebbins and her studio in the list of.
That's great.
Yeah. So,
do you know? Does her studio still stand?
No, nothing.
Okay.
There is the building where they lived. They lived in Via Gregoriana, which is a street going down Trinità dei Monti down to Piazza di Spagna. All the artists, all the foreigner, or the non-Italian artists, they were living all around Piazza di Spagna and the Spanish Steps, because there was an American bank there because there was Caffè Greco. I don't know. Any of you have been in Rome? No? Ah, okay, George over there. So Caffè Greco is a very historical cafe near the Spanish Steps, and it was where all the artists would gather to have a drink and to share gossip, including the Americans. And one practical reason the sculptures, all the artists were there is because on the Spanish Steps going down Trinità dei Monti to the fountain down in the Piazza di Spagna, a lot of models were there, a lot of women, men, old and young, kids, Roman people were there waiting to be hired by artists as models, and they specialized. I explained in my book. They specialized in different roles. So there were beautiful young women as Madonna, wanted to be hired as Madonna. Old guys, old men who wanted to be shepherds. Kids, So it was a very active situation, and it was very convenient for artists, especially for Americans, because with a few cents they could hire a model for many hours.
Still, it has to be frustrating to try to rely on newspapers for slight mentions, especially since didn't she burn the letters?
Yeah, she burned all the letters.
The diaries.
Yeah. No, so she was not mentioned on Italian newspapers, but she's mentioned a lot on American newspapers, American daily newspapers, American magazines, arts, specializing in arts and not only arts. So there I could find a lot of references. One article mentions Emma Stebbins as one of the 4 most important sculptors at that time, together with Rogers, who lived in and worked in Rome as well.
Harriet Hosmer
also, yes, but the other one was the sculptor who made the bronze doors of the rotunda in Washington D.C., for example. Yeah.
One of the problems that we find, and it was referenced between the two of us, when the original cure burned, the records went. So trying to find who was staying there pre-fire is difficult, because you have to read the newspapers. And after 1883, when the new cure came out, it becomes a little easier, because James H. Jackson and the company were promoting the cure by having practically a weekly "Who Has Arrived" column at the cure. So after 1883, we can find who was arriving, who was leaving, and they tell where they're from, and if they have a little bit of importance, they might mention, he's the president of the Boston to Maine Railroad, who stayed there. The wife of a senator from Nebraska stayed there. There were all sorts of people that we can track that way, but the period when Emma came, and before that, from 1858 on, it's very, very hard. It's very sporadic that you find mentions in the newspapers. It's a challenge. But that's kind of the fun of doing research. It really is. History detectives, just like the program. Fun. Did anyone else have questions?
Please.
Did Emma especially have anything else to say about Dansville, or do you know if Dansville sort of animated any of her writing about Charlotte, maybe? Does it enter at all
No, I don't think that Charlotte came here. As Jane said, probably she got the water cure in New York because there was a place where they did it. No, there is no other mention that I found in other letters or, unfortunately, no diary. and Charlotte died before in '76. So, no, unfortunately, no other mentions about Dansville.
This water cure was world famous. There were people who came here from Europe.
It was. I think it was the most important in America. I read. Yeah, because there were many around the country.
Well, New York State had most of the water cures in the country. Between New York and Massachusetts, we had like 1/3 of the water cures because all of the different springs, both clear water and mineral water springs in the U.S. We just were really blessed in this area with many good sources of water. And going back to the burned over district, we had a lot of people who were very forward thinking and willing to look at alternative means of accomplishing their life's goals. So water cure today, we would say, is alternative medicine. The regular doctors hated it because for many people it worked. But at the time, the idea that you could change your diet, change the amount of exercise you were doing, maybe get a little bit more clean than you were, get rid of alcohol, coffee, tea, salt in your diet, stopped eating salted and smoked meats, eat more fresh vegetables, get your mind straight, psychotherapy was used. So it really was a very advanced method of curing people, teaching the body to heal itself. And this is one of the reasons why the allopathic physicians just hated it. But at the time, you find many people embracing it because it was a way that you could take ownership of helping your body to get on track with the way it was meant to be. And water cure was something that you could do at home, hence Trowell's marvelous books, many books, on hydropathy and how to eat during water cure. He actually published a cookbook, the Hydropathic Cookbook, as did Lucretia Jackson, published a cookbook of meals that were eaten up there. Yeah.
I want to stress that the water cure, and especially here, it was particularly loved by women. That's why so many women were here. I can read a passage from my book explaining this. Water cure is finding proselytes, especially among women, because it treats puberty, menstruation, pregnancy, childbirth, and menopause as natural events to be understood and managed with the principles of hygiene and hydrotherapy, not with medicine or traumatic interventions. Many women patients were ultra satisfied with the results of Jackson's treatments and thrilled that they no longer feel dirty or sick, as traditional medicine considers them when they have their periods, for example. And that is why they adopted the laws of life as a religion. They were really followers, kind of followers of a guru, Dr. Jackson was.
There's a very good book on that topic called Wash and Be Healed by, I think it's Susan Califf, Cayliff, and Wash and Be Healed talks mostly about how water cure appealed to women.
Yes, I think
so. That's a good resource to go look for.